Haven't I commanded you? Haven't I commanded you? Be strong and courageous.
Hello, welcome back to Teaching Through the Bible as we begin a new class. Now this one is on the prophets. Last class we went through the law. That's Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. First 5 books of the Bible, pretty simple in that regard. This one's going to be a bit different. It doesn't follow the same English order. It is Joshua, Judges, Samuel, that's 1st and 2nd Samuel, Kings, that's 1st and 2nd Kings, and then what we may think of as the prophets, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, and the book of the 12, which is what we call the minor prophets. And they're all in this second section here, which is covenant history. So the last one was the law. It was how God established the covenant with his people. Well, now we're going to see not the covenant, but how God's people respond to the covenant. It's been established already. So, how do God's people respond? What do they do? That begins with Joshua, and that continues on. And we're going to see what they do in response now that God has given them this covenant, now that it's been inaugurated, what comes next. So that'll begin with Joshua, like I said. That's the first book we're going to go over. It's this second section here, the prophets. Now, you may notice I didn't say Ruth, I didn't say Lamentations, I didn't say Chronicles. Those are all going to be here in the writings section. That's a different section. That's not about how did God's people respond to the covenant. That's about how should they. What does that look like? Ruth is a great example of someone who followed God well. We're not going to see a lot of that in the covenant history section. When we see Joshua, things will start out well. But even then, you're going to see some cracks in the application of how they should be following God, and then we're going to get to Judges, and it's going to really go downhill. God's going to continue to be faithful despite what his people do, but we're going to see how they respond to him, and that's where we're going this time in this class. So where is Joshua? It is the 6th book of the Bible, and that's in the Hebrew order and the English order, but as I pointed out, some of the other books will be in different orders, and we'll see those as we get to them. What is the purpose of Joshua? What's it about? A big picture, we're seeing, as I said, how God's people respond to him. But you could maybe say the theme is fulfillment of Yahweh's promises. So we have some verses from all the way back in Genesis that gave us a hint of actually what's going on. God promised when he was making that covenant, right, in the law section, making the covenant with his people, starting all the way back with Noah, with Abraham, and then in Exodus moving on to Moses and to the nation of Israel. Well, back with Noah, there was a curse that's sometimes called the curse of Ham, because of something evil that Ham did, one of Noah's sons. And I can put that link below to the video. I talked about it there. There's definitely been some terrible misapplications of that. But the correct way of seeing that is actually that is it really the curse of Ham or of Canaan? Because Canaan, his son, is the one that's cursed for what happens. And so Canaan, he's got that name. Well, that's where the Canaanites come from. And so they're the ones that are cursed. So they've been cursed to be subservient. And then God's people are going to come in. And you already have had this hint of what's going to happen because of that curse. But it's more than that. It's even later on, talking to Abraham, God said that Abraham's descendants would be they would be slaves for 400 years. They would be out of the land and they would become slaves in Egypt. And then when they came back to the promised land, then they would, he kind of hints they're going to go wipe out the people of the land. But he says why. And why is it not now that they're going to get the land? Why is it later that they're going to get the land? The reason is because the sin, the iniquity of the Amorites is who he mentions. It's talking about all the Canaanite groups, that their sin is not filled up yet. Like, he's still waiting. He's still being patient. They could still turn back, turn to God, do the right thing, but they're not gonna. And he knows that. But he's waiting, and he's waiting. He's patient. And after 400 years from the point that he said it to Abraham, then they're going to be judged. So they've had generations and generations that they can respond, they can repent, and actually we'll see in Joshua, some people will actually respond positively, and God does not judge them and destroy them. He has mercy on people even then. But the vast majority, they are not going to respond positively. They have not responded positively, and they will be judged. And so God is bringing his people there to bring judgment on evil people. So that's what we're going to see with this fulfillment of those promises. We're going to see fulfillment of the land promises. God had promised to Abraham he would have a nation. He would have many people. Well, we've seen that even back in Exodus, how the Israelites had grown so much. That's why the Pharaoh said, hey, we got to enslave them so that then we can keep their numbers down and keep them, from having an uprising or something. But they've already got a lot of people. Well, now there's the land promise. The fact that God had told Abraham, this land, this is going to be for your descendants. Well, now we're going to see that fulfilled. So God's fulfilling his promises. All of his promises are being fulfilled in the book of Joshua. God is faithful both to the blessings and to the curses, both to the things that we look at positively and negatively. What he has said, he will do. And so that's what we're going to see in the book of Joshua. Now, in this book, as we're looking at just this book, a little more breaking it down, we have an outline here. Very simple. Deuteronomy was kind of a complicated outline because I was trying to show you all these different parts of a covenant document from the 2nd century BC, and Deuteronomy has that structure, trying to point out all these different things. It was pretty complicated. This one, nice and simple. Crossover, take, divide, serve. Very simple. So you have Joshua, the Israelites, they're going to cross over to the promised land. You have the Jordan River that they have to get across. So you have here Sea of Galilee, you have the Jordan River, then you have down here, there you go, and over here, this is Mediterranean, and then you've got the Dead Sea right there. So Joshua and the Israelites, they are coming from down and around here, and they're going to cross over from the east side of the Jordan River to the west side, which is where God had promised. Now, in Deuteronomy, we saw that 2.5 of the tribes, they wanted to stay on the other side, and God allowed that. But that's not where he initially had said, hey, here's the promised land here. The initial promised land was on the west side of the Jordan River. So they're going to cross over. That's going to be in the first 5 chapters. Then, chapters 6 through 12, they're going to take the land. We have conquest. We have them fighting these evil people who actually, even though they could say, you know what, actually, let's serve Yahweh, they're going to say, you know what, let's destroy these Israelites. And a lot of times they initiate the fighting. But either way, there's going to be fighting. Israel's going to win. They're going to take it. And then they're going to divide the land amongst themselves, right? They conquer and they divide the land and then serve. These last few chapters, chapters 22, 23, 24, Joshua is going to talk to the people, and he's going to encourage them that they need to serve Yahweh. It's not enough that they got the land. We saw this in Deuteronomy. We saw the covenant. We saw what God promised. He promised curses or blessings. Which one's it going to be? If they don't serve Yahweh, if they act instead like the Canaanites acted, then they will be judged like the Canaanites were judged. God's judging the Canaanites now for rejecting him, for being evil. And if God's people do the same thing, they also will be judged. So, they need to serve Yahweh, serve the covenant God. Now, one other thing as we look at this outline here, crossover, take, divide, serve, just a little bit of interesting wording to note is the Hebrew spelling of this. So, if you look at the Hebrew, I'll write it up here, and aver is for to cross over. And then when we talk about serve, it's avad. Aver, avad. They look almost the same. This R sounding consonant and the D sounding, or TH in this case, sounding consonant, they look almost the same. And the other two consonants are the same. So these words look very similar, the first and the last. And then let's look at the middle ones, to take and to divide. Well, you have lakach, and you have halach. It uses the same letters both times, it just switches the order. And so those also look very similar. So take and divide. You have 3 letters, and then again you have 3 letters, but the last one is now the first one. It's the only difference. So that's just something that's kind of a little bit maybe poetic, a little interesting how it's structured that way, and these words kind of fit the way they do, how they kind of pattern the beginning and the end, and then the 2 middle ones. So if you enjoy language at all, that's just a little cool little tidbit. But again, crossover, take, divide, serve. That is the pattern we're going to see. That's the outline that we're going to be following. And next time we'll start with those first couple chapters of Joshua. In that first section, crossing over, the beginning of crossing over the Jordan River into the Promised Land. Thank you for watching that video. I hope that it helped you learn a little bit more about the Bible today. And if you'd like to continue to learn more about the Bible, then we have plenty of other videos on the channel. And if this has been helpful for you, then you can always let me know by subscribing to the channel. And hopefully I'll be able to continue to help you learn even more about God's Word. Thanks.